million. We also get some MSA that applies to the debt service payments that will be paying off until 2024. Right now it's down to 2.1. It'll take to 2024. After that, that money is also free after that gets paid off to be used for other state aid purposes. We were using LGA for debt service. We're now getting about $1 million in a year, and it's going straight into the street fund. We're financing our debt with other revenue sources and using the LGA strictly for infrastructure. Our streets were in pretty bad shape, and we're working on a significant street improvement plan, debt reduction plan, and looking towards that new MSA that will be available in 2025 for MSA streets.
So we're very excited about this. Again, we talk about righting the ship or changing course. You think about a real large cruise line ship out in the ocean. It's going a direction. It's got a lot of momentum going one way. To change that course, you have this idea you want to go over here in this direction now. To make that change in course, it does take time. And I think what Ellie was showing you here is that time is paying off for us, that we are making progress to getting where the council would like to see us at.
We have had to introduce some new processes and procedures to really turn this around for us. One of them is starting our own special assessment revolving fund, so we will no longer borrow money after this year. We'll no longer be borrowing money for the special assessment portion of the project. The city will finance it with using some of these funds, begin financing the special assessments up front, earning the interest, putting the interest back into the revolving fund. Assuming the rate is going to be 5%, which is about what it is now, the city would earn $5.6 million in interest in the first 15 years. So we really see this start to working for us, not as much in this CIP period, but the next one where it really starts to revolve. And we will be seeing $1.7 million per year coming in revolving by year 15. So we're always very conscious of the City Council's desire to keep debt at a certain level. We've been presenting this to you. We've been talking about where we're going to keep the debt. So this is part of the decision-making that in this proposal that Steve and I had to do to keep the debt kind of where we had promised you. We have to build a fire station. There's no question about that. The fire station, the price on the fire station was about $3.5 million more than the old number that we'd been carrying in the CIP for years. So this is a team effort here. It's not one department against the other. We know that we have to issue that debt. So we've restructured our street plan to keep the debt level at where we promised you that it would be. By doing that, we're investing more in special assessments up front rather than direct project expenses. So that money doesn't go away. It stays there and revolves and works for us. However, if that's not the direction you want to take, we'd certainly go back to the drawing board and change that. But we decided to try to honor the debt level that we originally had talked about a couple of years ago and last year, even though we're faced with a higher price on the fire station. We're working that out just through manipulating the way that we're financing the streets. So as you can see, by the end of the 5-year CIP period, we'll be under $50 million, which is where we've been shooting for.
And, when Ellie and I talk about having a financing plan for financing our projects, we talk about having a good foundation for this. So we think of it as 4 corners, or there's 4 pieces to this foundation, and Ellie will kind of touch on a few of those.
So obviously special assessments are important. That allows us, 20% special assessments allows us to bond for the project. The franchise fees.
Yep. So that's our gas and electric franchise fees that go into the street replacement fund. That helps finance things like spot paving as well as like some of our pavement reclamation projects.
The municipal contributions can be transfers from our utility funds for the utility component of the project. GO bonds, it can be tax levies. Any new sources that, and we know you've been discussing some of that, any new sources of revenue would help draw down those municipal contributions. We also get municipal state aid, so that's kind of how our financing plan works. So in a typical, in our 2024, so the CIP that is just now being revised, 2021 to 2025, this is basically what our financing plan looks like for that whole period. So what you see with the crosshatch, everything from utility fund contributions to the street fund, which is basically franchise fees and local government aid and other revenues, and our intergovernmental revenue, MSA, and special assessments. Those are all cash contributions now. We're no longer borrowing money for the utility funds. We're no longer borrowing money for special assessments after this year. GO bonds are about 38% of it, so that's where we still have some work to do. And other revenue sources would certainly make a difference. Anything to add to that? Just a real quick look at what the road fund or the street revitalization fund will look like in the next 5-year period if we go through and begin to implement the CIP the way that we're talking tonight. We have about $19 million in revenue. A good portion of that is franchise fees, possibly a small property tax levy. That hasn't been decided yet. Special assessment revenue of $2.6 million. So here's where you see where we're making that sacrifice for the long-term gains. $2.6 million in special assessment revenue. On the other side, on the expenditures, you'll see we're financing $7.8 million. So we've got to get that ball rolling and get this fund started. But by the next CIP period, you'll really start to see where at some point we'll be taking in more money than we're actually spending in that.
And in the expenditures, I'll just point out the thin coat paving. That's that spot paving that we started doing here in the last couple of years, which both is, I think, a huge benefit to our residents in areas where we can't keep patching the same hole multiple times throughout the year. We come in and we essentially put a larger patch on, kind of like a Band-Aid that will last for a number of years. It really serves, it's been well received by the residents, really improves their quality of life right there, as well as well received by our staff, because rather than going back 3 or 4 times to fill the same holes, we're there once and then we don't have to be there for a number of years again.
Going down back to the revenues, the local government aid, $5.5 million in this period. Again, any other revenue source would help free up that money for economic development or other initiatives that the city would have. And then just to point out again that the municipal state aid that's coming in this 5-year period, $4.4 million, and we've already received a portion of it, so there's $4.4 million coming in. That is what we're calling one-time revenue, because the additional MSA that comes in after that will be dedicated for the 20% MSA streets.
Yes, that's correct. That one-time payment is the paid short projects where they owe us the money but haven't been able to pay us because we had other debt from advancing the projects.
So we're looking at having a surplus of a little over $4 million at the end of this 5-year period. We do like to have at least $1 million or $2 million for contingencies and cash flow, but there may be some other projects that can be worked in. The one thing that we have to be careful with and keep very balanced is that every time there's a project, there is also some debt issued. So we really have to be watching that balance all the time. But this is kind of where we're starting. We're calling this a preview. I know this was really quick, but we will be coming back with a more thorough CIP plan in the near future, actually.
Thank you. This is a really great report. I know how hard you and your staff have worked for the last couple of years. And sitting up here, it is amazing to see the policies that the council felt so passionate about, but to see them coming to fruition and having a day like this where we can celebrate that project that, when I got onto the council in 2014, I remember that the project had already been done, but the whole point was that if Maplewood had not done that project, it probably would not have been done for 20 years. And it was a big project, it was a huge undertaking, and now it's paid off. And I think, all of the people that are driving through that section of 36 should be thankful for what the city did for that. So thank you for all of your hard work. This truly is a day of celebration. Councilmember Juniman.
I just have to say that all the rest of you may think you're happy, but I'm happier than the rest of you because I was sitting here the night we had to make the decision to do that. And when you think about that huge amount of money, your eyes are like bugging out of your head. But when the alternative is you're going to get passed by, there is no decision to make. You have to make that one. And so to see this happen while I'm still sitting here is yahoo.
Yeah. Thank you for that excellent report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're very
Really
excited.
Inspirational. And with that, we are going to close the workshop. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we will come back and start our council meeting.